I hadn't set foot on the porch of my parents' house in New Orleans for 5 months, and yet everything felt exactly the same, like the humidity had memorized my name. The jasmine curled lazily along the fence. The wind carried the smell of something buttery and faintly scorched, and the chipped tile beneath my heels creaked like it resented me for leaving. I adjusted the hem of my black blazer and rang the bell. It was Saren who opened the door. She wore pastel pink like it was her second skin. Her makeup was sharp, her smile sharper. Well, well. Look who remembered the address, she said, stepping aside without so much as a hello. Still dressing like you're attending a board meeting at midnight. I didn't answer. She'd made comments like that since we were kids, first about my glasses, then my silence, then my clothes. Some people outgrow pettiness. Saren polished hers. Inside, my mother was already floating through the dining room, a silk scarf draped over her shoulder, and that brittle, almost convincing smile on her face. "Maris, honey," she said, air-kissing near my cheek. "Still all black, You know, a little color wouldn't kill you." "Hi, Mom." Dad didn't even look up from his plate of over-baked lasagna. Fork in hand, his eyes were locked on the food, like solving it might reveal some truth he couldn't face. I took the last empty chair at the table, directly across from Saren, who reclined like a queen at a press conference. She hadn't changed. Same dramatic posture, same smug curl to her lips. Dinner began with obligatory small talk, weather, traffic. An awkward moment where Mom praised Saren's recent modeling shoot. "Just look at those cheekbones," without glancing at me. Saren scrolled through her phone the entire time. At one point, she angled the camera carefully to capture the wine glass and candles cutting my face entirely out of the frame. I knew better than to think this was just dinner. Halfway through her wine, Saren stood. She didn't clink her glass. She didn't need to. "I have something exciting to share," she announced. "My 33rd is next month, and it's going to be iconic." I kept chewing. "I found the perfect venue," she went on. "Rooftop in the warehouse district, champagne wall, drone videography, a horse-drawn carriage if we can get the permit. Think Paris, but with more glitter." She paused for effect. "And the total cost just under $150,000. The fork in my hand slowed. "And you," she said, pointing at me, "get to make it happen." Silence. I stared at her, and then at my mother, who gave a polite little nod, like it was already agreed upon. "Sweetheart," Mom added, her voice soft and strategic, "it really would mean the world to your sister. You've been so blessed lately. Isn't it time to give back?" Dad, as always, said nothing. Something sharp and metallic settled behind my ribs. I forced a breath and reached for my water. "You want me to fund your birthday?" I asked evenly. Saren laughed like it was a compliment. "Oh, come on, sis. You own hotels. It's not like you're hurting. Besides, you never do anything fun with your money. Let me show you how." The ache that had brought me to their door deepened. I wasn't family. I was funding. I didn't scream. I didn't storm out. I excused myself from the table and walked out with a smile so tight it could cut glass. Back home, I kicked off my heels and poured a glass of red. My phone buzzed before I'd even taken a sip. It was Ina, my operations manager. "Check Saren's Instagram story," her text read. I did. On one side of the split screen, Saren sipping champagne with her event planner captioned, "Iconic incoming." On the other, a video of my car pulling into my driveway. 10 years old, a little scuffed. The caption, "When your rich sister lives like she's in witness protection." The comments were already pouring in. At least she's not pretending. Wow, money clearly doesn't buy taste. I gripped my wine glass tighter. I didn't reply, didn't post, didn't scream. I watched. The next morning, I forwarded the video to my private drive and screenshotted the comments. I opened a folder on my desktop and titled it Saren Receipts. By Thursday, I hadn't returned a single call. My mother texted, "Don't be dramatic." Saren sent a voice memo I didn't open. And then Friday morning, an envelope arrived at my office, heavy paper wax seal, Monroe Events Group, in cursive at the top. Ina brought it in, dropped off by courier, no return address. Inside was a glossy packet. Venue details, lighting schemes, menu tastings. On page 6, under Budget Distribution Financial Liaison, Maris Calder. Signature pending. Only I never agreed to any of it. I stared at it for a long time, the rage in my chest too organized to be called anger. They'd planned everything. They expected me to fold, to pay for silence. I wasn't going to scream. I was going to document. And when the time came, I wouldn't pay with money. I'd pay with clarity. And I'd make sure it echoed. The envelope arrived mid-meeting. Ina paused mid-sentence when the receptionist poked her head in and said, "Courier for Ms. Calder, marked urgent. From Sharon Monroe's assistant." Just hearing that name made my chest tighten. I took the manila envelope without a word and set it on the table between us. Ina didn't have to ask who it was from. She just folded her hands over her tablet, waiting like a surgeon giving space for a patient to decide when to say cut. I peeled the flap open slowly. Inside, heavyweight ivory paper, gold-embossed tabs, and the unmistakable sheen of a custom event contract. Monroe Events Group, the Imperial Deckhouse. Saturday, 7 p.m. Sharon Monroe's 33rd birthday party. My name was listed as Family Financial Liaison. Beneath it, billing contact, Ms. Maris Calder. Signature required. I stared at the elegant cursive letters like they were written in acid. "She didn't," Ina said flatly, leaning forward. "She wouldn't." Oh, but she did. I pushed the document toward her. "She's pre-filled my name, forged my consent, and locked in a venue I don't even own. Yet." I looked up at her, one brow raised. Ina smirked. "Just saying. If she wanted to throw a tantrum in our venue, I'd at least charge her double." I didn't laugh. I was too busy staring at the phrase, "confirmed by Emsu Calder," underlined in pink highlighter like a signature from God. This wasn't miscommunication. This was calculated ambush. I stood up, walked over to the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked downtown New Orleans. Tourists buzzed between art galleries and cafes. Somewhere out there, Sharon was probably sipping overpriced champagne, updating her story, with a filter captioning something passive-aggressive like, "Family support is so underrated." "I know what she's doing," I said. Ina joined me by the window. "She's trying to trap you. If you cancel now, it's not just business, it's personal. It makes you look cold, unforgiving. And if I don't, I'm endorsing it, paying for it, participating in my own humiliation." She didn't answer. She didn't have to. The silence was enough. Back at my desk, I opened my laptop and started a new email. No greeting, no warmth, just the subject line, unauthorized financial commitment. Bot, we do not process contracts submitted through personal relationships. All future communication must be directed to my legal team. Unsolicited agreements will not be acknowledged or honored. M. Calder. I hit send. Then I opened a new folder on my desktop, SC Unauthorized Booking. Inside it, I saved the scanned contract. Then screenshots of Sharon's Instagram story from the night she announced the party. Then the text I got from my mother that morning. "You know how much this means to your sister? You're the only one who can help." There it was. Guilt wrapped in obligation. By the time Ina came back in with my coffee, I had the beginnings of a paper trail. "This isn't just about a party," I told her. Ina nodded. "It's about control." And Sharon was good at that. She didn't use force, she used optics, emotion, pressure. She didn't scream. She posted. She didn't argue. She implied. And if you resisted, you were the problem. Cold, difficult, unforgiving. I'd spent a lifetime being called all three. The next day, Ina tapped her screen during our morning meeting. "You're gonna love this." I raised an eyebrow. She booked Somerset. My stomach dropped. Somerset wasn't just any venue. It was my flagship. The crown jewel of my hotel group. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, terrace views of the riverfront. Carefully curated invitation-only clientele. She did it through a third-party planner. Ina continued. used a shell name, but the deposit just came through wired from an account linked to Monroe Media. I didn't speak. She didn't even ask you, Maris. Didn't check if the ballroom was open. Just assumed. That word again. Assumed. Assumed I'd roll over. Assumed I'd pay. Assumed I'd stay silent. I walked over to the reservation terminal and typed in the reference number. There it was. Somerset Grand Lux Package. Guest of honor, Saren Monroe. Guest count 130. Notes, gold theme, imported orchids. Ice sculpture of her initials. Is she trying to make me cancel in public? I asked. Ina leaned against the desk. She's forcing your hand. Either you shut it down and look vindictive, or you let it slide and she gets everything she wants. I opened the security feed. The booking was fresh, but the venue had already seen movement. I fast-forwarded through last night's footage, and there she was. Saren. In heels too high for polished floors, gesturing wildly to a planner I didn't recognize, spinning in the ballroom like she owned it. She's staging her fantasy. In my space. On my dime. Not for long, Ina said calmly. I clicked pause, then took a breath. The old Maris might have called Saren that second. Might have yelled, threatened, demanded an apology, but not anymore. Now I was in a different game. I minimized the video and opened the Somerset files. Then I began drafting a private incident log. All interactions, all records, all footage. Let her dig her own grave, I said softly. I'll just build the headstone. That evening, I got another text from my mother. Let's not make this a big deal, Maris. Your sister just wants to feel special. You've always had more than you need. Be kind. I didn't respond. Instead, I added the message to the archive. Later that night, I sat on my porch in the quiet. A soft breeze rustled the leaves. My wine glass rested against my thigh, untouched. For the first time in weeks, I felt strangely calm. They thought this was about a birthday. They had no idea what they'd started, and I was just getting warmed up. I arrived at the office earlier than usual that morning. The streets of New Orleans were still yawning, barely dusted with sunlight. I thought I'd have a quiet hour before the storm. But Ina was already there, standing near my desk, with a stack of paper in her hand and a look that said, "You need to see this now." She didn't speak, just handed me the printout. At the top was a still frame from a video. Saren stood in the center of Somerset's grand lobby, wearing a too-tight cocktail dress and heels that made her look like she'd just walked off a reality show set. One arm was extended like a monarch, pointing at her army. The other was mid-gesture as she scolded the staff. Below the photo, a caption bold and saccharine, "Some of us were born to shine. Others just clean up after." I stared at it for a moment. My mouth was dry. I didn't feel rage. I didn't even feel surprise. Just that familiar ache behind my ribs, the one that always showed up when someone reminded me once again that in my family's eyes, I was not a person. I was a resource. She posted it an hour ago, Ina said softly, as if afraid to break the moment. It's already being reshared. And the comments, I don't need to see them, I replied. I didn't. I could already imagine. The same faceless avatars cheering her on. The same people who assumed I was cold because I didn't scream back. What's worse, Ina continued flipping the page, is this. She laid out the next few printouts, screen captures of email threads between Saren and local vendors, florists, lighting techs, a luxury dessert caterer. All quoting my name, all signed with approval, pending from Maris Calder, owner, Somerset. She's using your name, Maris, Ina said, like it's a credit card. I leaned against my desk, steadying myself. Did any of these vendors reach out to confirm? 3 so far. 2 sent invoices to our accounting department. One of them has already added us to their accounts receivable list. I nodded once. No surprise. Only rhythm now. I took the stack from Ina and walked into the conference room. Closed the door. Laid everything out. Print by print, message by message. Like a forensic map of betrayal. They always told me I was too serious. too cold. But seriousness builds businesses. Seriousness reads every clause in every contract. Seriousness knows when to be silent and when to strike. I pulled up the security footage. The lobby camera had caught everything. High heels clicking against marble arms flailing, orders barked like she owned the place. At one point, she called the event manager incompetent and rolled her eyes at a staff member struggling to understand her request. The tone was sharp, condescending. And then came the moment she turned to the house DJ and snapped, "Can someone please find a sound tech who knows what bass is?" The young man looked maybe 22. I remembered hiring him last month. He had stayed late 2 weekends in a row to help reset lighting after a storm knocked power out. He didn't flinch when she yelled. He just adjusted the speaker like a professional and said nothing. I watched that moment 3 times. Then Ina stepped into the room holding a flash drive. "We've saved the footage. Full export. And I've started a shared folder for the rest: emails, voice notes, social posts. I'm labeling it liability evidence, internal only." I didn't say thank you. I just nodded. "Do we reply publicly?" she asked. "Not yet," I said. "Let her think she's running the show." At that moment, a courier arrived. Another envelope. This one was glossier than the last, sealed with a gold foil sticker. Ina raised a brow and sliced it open for me. Inside was a formal invitation, an embossed card with florals and silver trim. "You are cordially invited." It read, "To celebrate Saren Calder's 33rd birthday. An iconic evening of elegance." At the bottom, in oversized print, was the kicker venue generously supported by Maris Calder. My name, my venue. My silence turned into her stamp of approval. I placed the invitation down slowly, pressed my palm to the desk, let the tension settle into my bones. "She's dragging your name into every element now," Ina said. "No," I said softly. "She's handing it to me. Paper trail Ina. She's building it for me." We spent the next hour documenting everything. Every vendor, every fake approval, every comment where she boasted that my sister is footing the bill, she just hasn't said it yet. Ina filed screenshots by category. The evidence folder grew like ivy. I didn't react. I moved. She thought silence was weakness. She didn't understand that silence, when chosen, not forced, was the sharpest blade of all. At noon, my accountant called. I just got a hold of an invoice for a champagne wall. "It's addressed to Somerset. Did you approve it?" "No," I said calmly. "Forward it to legal." I figured. There's a clause on the invoice saying cancellation carries a 40% penalty. "Just FYI. Let them try to bill us," I replied. "We'll be ready." After the call, I stood by the tall window in my office and looked down at the courtyard where the first wedding I ever hosted took place. I remembered every detail: the bride's nervous laugh, the groom's trembling hands, the way the mother of the bride cried into her napkin during the toast. This place meant something to me. It was never about champagne or orchids or chandeliers. It was about space, real space, for people to be themselves, to belong. And now Serene was trying to use that for a photo shoot. I turned from the window, walked back to my desk, and opened my laptop. The email I typed was brief, polite, legal. Subject: unauthorized use of venue. Immediate clarification required. Body: to whom it may concern, this email is to confirm that no authorization has been granted for the use of Somerset for any upcoming event related to Ms. Saren Calder. All communications citing Maris Calder or Somerset as sponsor or financial contributor are to cease immediately. Future inquiries should be directed to our legal department. M. Calder. I hit send. No rage, no noise, just precision. Because some people play games in public. Others build fortresses in silence. Later that evening, Ina poked her head into my office. "One last thing," she said, holding up a single piece of mail. It was a return RSVP from a Monroe family member connected to Saren's fiancé's side. "Looks like they're expecting quite the spectacle," Ina added dryly. I took the card, scanned it. At the bottom, someone had added, in cursive, "Looking forward to seeing the place your sister built." I smiled, not because it was funny, but because it was confirmation. She'd taken the bait. The chapter wasn't over. It was only now beginning. Saren didn't leave right away. She lingered in the lobby, drifting between guests like a ghost at her own funeral. Her eyes flicked from person to person, searching for an anchor, a lifeline, but no one reached for her. Even Beckham stood by the Monroe family, answering quiet questions from his mother with a nod that never included Saren. It wasn't anger she was facing now. It was indifference. Ina returned to my side with 2 glasses of water and a look that said everything without a word. "She's unraveling," she said simply. "Let her?" I replied, my voice low but steady. I watched the feed a moment longer, then closed the laptop. Downstairs, a staff member approached Saren with a clipboard, not to cater to her demands, but to confirm setup instructions. It was standard procedure. But Saren recoiled, shaking her head, as if the very act of being consulted insulted her. She no longer commanded the room. She wasn't the host. She wasn't anything at all. And I could see it in her eyes, the dawning realization that power borrowed is never truly yours. I left the office quietly and took the long hallway that overlooked the garden. The twilight was sinking in, and Somerset glowed gently in the amber light. Guests sipped wine under the vine-wrapped pergola. The jazz quartet played soft, elegant notes. Everything was perfect. Everything she had claimed as hers. Until now. When I reached the terrace, Beckham stood alone, staring out at the skyline. He turned when he heard my steps. "Ms. Calder," he said with a voice heavier than before. "Maris," I replied. "We've met." He smiled faintly. "You built this?" "I did. I thought it was a family inheritance." "Not in any way that matters," I said. He paused, looking back toward the ballroom. "She told us a lot of things." I waited. "She said she ran this place, that it was part of her legacy, that she was raised in hospitality." "She was raised in entitlement," I said, not bitterly, just truthfully. He exhaled slowly. "I don't know what to do with that." "You don't have to decide tonight." He nodded, then added, "You handled this with restraint." Restraint. The word settled in my chest like a quiet victory. Not triumph, not revenge, just balance long overdue. When I returned to the hallway leading back to my office, Saren was waiting there. Alone. Her makeup was blotched mascara streaks under her eyes like smeared ink on a page that wouldn't read the way she wanted. The dress no longer shimmered. It clung heavy and out of place like a costume at the wrong play. She stepped forward. "I just wanted one night." "You had it," I said. "Not like this," she snapped. "This is the only version of this you were ever going to get." Tears filled her eyes, but I saw no regret, only injury that things didn't go her way. "I didn't think you'd go that far. You wrote the script, Saren. I just stopped being your prop." Her face crumpled. "I thought we were still sisters." "We were never on the same side," I said quietly. "Not once." She tried again. "Then what happens now?" I opened the office door and stepped inside. "Now," I said, looking back at her, "now I do what you've never done, close the door when it needs closing." I didn't slam it. I didn't lock it. I simply let it click shut, soft, final. And for the first time in our shared history, she was the one left standing outside. The wind that evening had a strange kind of hush to it, like the city knew something was ending. Maris was slicing lemons in the kitchen, the kind of quiet task she'd always found soothing after a long day at Somerset. Ina had gone home early, and the last few staff members had filtered out with quiet waves. It was just her and Aunt Gwen now. Maris's mother's oldest sister, the one who had stayed out of the family politics and taught her the value of silence, of stillness, of not answering cruelty with more of the same. Gwen was in the den now, humming softly to herself as she arranged a bouquet of dahlias on the windowsill. 3 knocks broke the rhythm, not loud, not rushed, but deliberate. Maris dried her hands, walked to the door, and opened it to find Saren. Her sister stood on the porch, looking smaller than she ever had. Gone was the signature blowout, the lashes, the designer coat that usually announced her like a parade float. Her makeup was minimal if present at all. The shadows under her eyes weren't from contour, they were real. "Hey," Serene said softly. Her arms folded not defensively but like she was holding herself together. I didn't know where else to go." Maris didn't say anything, just stepped aside. She didn't invite her in. She just left the door open and turned back toward the kitchen. Saren followed. The air inside smelled of lemon zest and jasmine tea. Gwen glanced up from her arrangement recognition, flickering in her eyes, before she nodded once, quietly excused herself, and disappeared into the guest room. Maris poured tea into 2 mugs, slid one across the counter. "I didn't come for anything," Saren said quickly. "Not to ask, I mean. Not like before." Maris raised an eyebrow, skeptical but silent. "They lost everything," Saren whispered, staring into the steam curling from the cup. "The Monroe deal gone. Beckham left after the party. His parents told him he'd be disinherited if he didn't. Mom and Dad got served 2 separate lawsuits, one from the caterer, one from the photographer. They're living in a motel in Metairie. No credit cards, no favors left." She looked up. "They're not even angry anymore. They're just old." Maris leaned back against the counter, arms folded. Saren took a shaky breath. "They're scared." A long silence followed. The only sound was the faint clink of ceramic as Saren set her cup down. Maris tilted her head. "Why are you here?" Saren blinked. "To tell you. I don't know. To say I'm sorry, I guess." "No," Maris said quietly, voice even. "Try again." "What? You're not sorry. You're cornered." "That's different." Saren's eyes welled, but Maris didn't flinch. She'd seen tears before public, private, and theatrical. She'd stopped mistaking them for sincerity a long time ago. "They're still our parents," Saren whispered, voice cracking. "They're broken. I don't think they even know how to apologize. But they need help." "They needed to stop using their children as insurance plans," Maris replied. "And they didn't." Saren stood up abruptly, pacing now. "You think I don't know that? You think I don't see it now? I was stupid and selfish and blind, but that doesn't mean they deserve to die in some roadside motel." Maris remained still. "I'm not asking you to forgive them," Saren pleaded. "I'm just asking you not to let them disappear." Maris finally moved, reaching into a drawer and pulling out a white envelope. She slid it across the table. Saren looked down. Inside was no check, no cash. Just a list of addresses and phone numbers for 3 housing support programs, 2 legal aid foundations, and a church known for discreet charitable outreach. "If you want to help them," Maris said softly, "start there. But don't bring them back into my life." Saren looked up, eyes wide with a kind of wounded disbelief. "You really mean that?" Maris nodded. "I forgave them a long time ago. But forgiveness isn't a welcome mat. It's closure." The silence between them thickened. Saren's face collapsed. She slumped back into her chair, like the air had been let out of her. "They talk about you, you know," she said bitterly. "Even now. Dad says you were always cold. That you think success means you're above family. Mom says you're just empty inside." Maris's lips curved into the smallest smile. Not cruel, not triumphant, just calm. "They're half right," she replied. "Success didn't make me cold. They did. But the part they'll never understand is emptiness can be cleaned out and filled again. With truth, with peace, with people who show up." Saren wiped her eyes with the sleeve of her jacket. She nodded slowly, like she finally saw it all clearly. "I don't blame you," she whispered. Maris gave a gentle nod. Saren stood. "This is probably goodbye, isn't it?" Maris didn't answer. She didn't need to. Saren tucked the envelope into her coat pocket and walked to the door. At the threshold, she hesitated. "I hope someday I can build something real, too." Maris didn't look back. Her voice floated from the kitchen. "Start by telling the truth, even if no one claps for it." The door clicked shut. Later that night, Maris sat on the balcony wrapped in a shawl, a glass of white wine resting on the table beside her. Gwen rejoined her, wordlessly passing a plate of shortbread cookies. "You did good," Gwen said quietly. Maris shrugged. "It didn't feel good." Gwen smiled. "That's because you didn't do it to win. You did it to finish." Maris nodded slowly. She picked up her phone, scrolled down her contact list. The numbers of Celeste, Magnus, and Saren all remained glowing quietly, like landmines. One by one, she blocked each one. The wind shifted, brushing her cheek like a soft goodbye. Inside Somerset's calendar continued to fill. Outside New Orleans blinked with slow, golden light. She leaned back, letting the quiet settle in her lungs. There would be no applause, no validation. But in that silence, there was no debt, no drama, no waiting for the next shoe to drop. Just peace. And that, finally, was enough. Sometimes the hardest doors to close are the ones that were never opened with love in the first place. Maris's story isn't just about a birthday party gone wrong or a toxic family dynamic. It's about reclaiming your now when others try to rewrite your worth. It's about learning that loyalty has limits and that silence isn't always peace. What struck me most in this story is Maris's quiet strength. She didn't retaliate with noise. She built her boundaries with facts, not fury. And in the end, she didn't seek revenge, she sought release. That's the difference between reacting and responding. One drains you, the other frees you. There's a lesson here for anyone who's ever been treated like a backup plan, a wallet, or a second thought. You don't have to scream to be heard. You don't have to prove your worth to those committed to misunderstanding it. The most powerful isn't confrontation. It's walking away without losing yourself in the process. To everyone watching, if you've ever been the strong one in the family, the one who gets leaned on until you break, just know you're allowed to draw a line. You're allowed to say, "This ends with me." And if this story resonated with you, drop a comment. Tell us what part hit home. Type 1. If you've ever had to choose peace over obligation. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow for more stories that speak to the heart. Because sometimes the quietest endings are the ones that finally set you free.